Hello, welcome back to part 2 of my guitar build. In this episode I'm going to be turning this body blank into an actual guitar body. Hi, I'm Alexis, welcome to Alexis Guitars. As I said in the intro, this is part 2 of my guitar build. Now in case you haven't seen part 1, make sure you check it out. I'll leave a link for it on the screen, somewhere up here, and in the description below. Just a quick recap of episode 1. In that episode I turned bits of wood like this into a body blank like this. Let me give you some information about this guitar body. Now the back is 2 pieces of robinia stuck together, or rubinia, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. And the top is 2 pieces of this old cabinet wood, which I don't know what it is. Someone told me it looks like oak, so it could well be an oak top. If you have an idea what it could be, let me know in the comments below. But it's 2 beautiful pieces of whatever it is with these beautiful dark lines all the way through it. I absolutely love it. It was a complete surprise. I sanded it down and it revealed all of this lovely grain and all of these lovely markings. So what do I need to do to this to turn it into an actual guitar body? Well, that's what today's episode is about. I'm going to be routing out a pocket for the neck. I'll talk more about this in a moment. I'll be routing out a electronics cavity over here. It's going to be a humbucker configuration because the original guitar, which I'm replicating, have a look at episode 1 if you haven't for information about that guitar, is HSS, so humbucker single coil. And I just wanted something different this time round, so 2 humbuckers it's going to be. It's going to have 1 volume, 1 tone, and a 3-way selector switch. So I'm going to need to drill holes for all of those parts, as well as an input jack, the pickup cavities, and I'm going to install the bridge. So hopefully by the end of this episode, this is going to be a guitar body, which minus all the hardware, is ready to go. That's all the routing. Now on top of that, what I need to do is correct a few mistakes I made in episode 1. Namely, this hole here, there's a bit of a dip where the router got a bit overzealous and ripped out a whole chunk, and exactly the same thing over on this side where there's a little gap here. So what I want to do is fill that up with some wood filler, sand it down flush with the rest of the body, and the back of the body is going to be painted anyway. That's going to be in another episode. In this episode, I'm going to just focus on routing out the holes and getting this guitar body in a working condition. One thing I didn't mention, which I need to do, is add a bit of contouring to the guitar top. So the guitar top, unfortunately, has a bit at the end where it kind of goes down like this. That's not an issue, I'm not worried about that. All it means I need to do is contour it out and just continue that line up here and fade it away somewhere, just to make it look like a bit more of a design. I haven't decided yet if that contour is going to go all the way around the body, or just here and kind of fade away as a bit of a, like a Stratocaster style cut for your arm. We'll have to see. So I'm going to start with the neck pocket because I want to make sure that the neck fits in tightly and I know exactly where it ends. Now I've kind of already done that on my template. I've aligned the neck up to where I want it to be. And the reason I want to do the neck first is because that will tell me where the bridge is going to be, and it will also tell me what the spacing in between is like, so I can figure out where I'm going to put my 2 humbuckers and how far apart they're going to be. So first will be the neck, then the bridge, then I can think about the pickups, and then I need to figure out where in this space I'm going to do the electronics pocket and have the volume and tone knob and selector switch poking through. Now I'm not sure if the camera's going to show this, I'll do some close-ups just in case if it doesn't, but you can see up here where I've drawn a rounded neck pocket because I don't want a big ugly square block. I've got enough guitars, Strats and Tellys which have that, and I want something where I've got a bit more easy access to the higher frets, where this big corner doesn't get in the way. So I'm going to round it off, but first things first, I'm going to carve out the neck pocket. Now I do actually want to build my own neck for this guitar. However, I've never done that before. It's probably going to take me a long time to actually get it right. So until I do, I'm going to be using this neck here to fit in with the guitar. So I'm going to route out the neck pocket to fit this neck here. This neck, by the way, came from a Harley Benton kit. It's a 12-inch radius. It feels very comfortable in the hand. I like it. However, I want to build my own neck. So this is just the safety net, the plan B, until I actually make my own neck, which I can just replace this one with. So before I go straight into the guitar body with the router, I want to make sure that I've got a template that I can follow. So I'm going to cut out the neck pocket here on my template so that I've got something that my router can follow and give me a nice, hopefully a nice neat job. Let's give it a go. basically it's a nice snug fit, which is good. I need to work on these edges a little bit, but I think that's something I'm going to need to do on the guitar itself. I started with a saw, I then used the router just to kind of get as close to the lines as I felt brave enough to, and then I just went with sandpaper just to kind of smoothen it out. And now I'm going to put this on the guitar, which is here, and start routing out the, oh, it looks beautiful, doesn't it? And I'm going to start routing out the neck pocket. So apologies, but my phone ran out of battery as I was recording me routing out the neck pocket. But as you can see, I finished it up, and I'm just going to explain to you what I did because I had to change plan a little bit midway through. So you saw me cut out the template. That turned out well. I was happy with that. I got a nice snug fit with the neck. I then clamped this down to the body, and I used this router bit to start with. Now this is a 2 centimeter long router bit, and the good thing about this router bit is that it comes with this metal ring, so that can glide along my template, and ideally that will allow me to get the exact shape of the template cut out. However, I didn't go right up to the edges with this. I did go close, but I didn't do the whole thing with this because up here there's not enough wood for the router to be steady. I was really worried about kind of holding it at an angle or maybe slipping this way a little bit, and I didn't want to rip out a whole chunk of the neck. I really wanted this to be a nice snug fit. So I got the majority of wood out with this thing, and then I switched to this very thin, I think it's about 5 mil in diameter. This router bit's not really focusing, but you can see it's just a bog standard router bit. And with this one, I just went over right up against the template. It hasn't got one of those rings like this one does, so I had to be extra careful with this, and I did it super slow. I did about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 passings on each section just to make sure it lines up with the template. The good thing about this, because it's so precise and so thin, I was able to get the curvature here to basically replicate the curvature up there so that I can get a nice snug fit. But I had an issue which I had to resolve. I put it in, I had a nice snug fit, as I do now. There we go. So you can see it's a nice snug fit. I can hold it, it stays in place. That's exactly what I want. The problem is, initially, I'm going to do this completely exaggerated just to show you what happened. The neck wasn't quite lined up centrally. It was a bit more at an angle, which is not ideal. It's not what I wanted. And I really planned this out, so I don't know why that happened. So what I had to do was I took the neck out again. I went back to this very precise drill bit, and I ever so slightly changed the angle of this side just a bit more like this. I'm exaggerating the angle I did it with. I took off literally less than a millimeter in depth. I was just shaving off a little bit more up here and a little bit less down there to give it that angle. The thing is, that allowed me to correct the neck angle, but there was a little bit of a gap here. So you can probably see here, I've got a little piece of wood which I glued down, and then I went over with some sandpaper to get the right angle. And I'm going to do that a little bit more to get it a bit more flush over here. But basically now with this piece of veneer glued in, the neck sits in nice and snug. It's at a much better angle, but basically it's usable now. I can work with it, and I'm really happy that it's got a nice tight neck pocket. So the next thing I did, which you may have already noticed, is I rounded out the neck pocket. Now this is not finished. All I did was I got a electric saw, cut the rough shape. It turned out well. I'm really happy with it. I just need to go over with a sander just to kind of flatten it out and make it look a bit prettier. Now I need to do the job that I've been avoiding for ages, and that is flattening this whole thing out, because I don't want to do any drilling or routing or any bridge placement until this thing is completely flat, because I don't want anything to mess up the intonation of the guitar. So that's my next job. I'm really worried about this because there's all these beautiful dark lines on the body. I think, let me see if I can get this in a good light. Yeah, you can kind of see there's all of these beautiful dark lines on the body. Here's a good way to see it. And I'm scared if I sand it flush, they're all going to go away, and I don't want that. But I need a flat guitar, so I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and do it. Now I'm going to have a look at where the bridge is going to go. So a quick update, I put 2 bits of masking tape on, and then I just used this straight edge to go alongside the side of the neck, and then I just drew a line with a pencil, and I did the same thing down over here. And this here is the bridge I'm going to be using. It's a standard hardtail. I really like these bridges. You've got a lot of flexibility regarding the height of the saddles, how far back or forward they go, and also importantly, you can string through the bridge. You can, if you want, string through the body, but I haven't got the tools to drill a straight hole through the body. If I did it just with my hand drill, then all the lines will go in weird angles. You can't really see it on the camera, but I've got a piece of masking tape here right on the edge of the fretboard where I've marked out the midpoint of the edge of the fretboard. I'm also going to mark out the midpoint of the nut, and that way I'll have a nice straight line right down the middle. Just as I'm filming this, the truss wood arrived, so that's cool timing. I'm not going to need this for weeks, I think. By the time I get to the neck, that's going to be, yeah, ages down the line. Back to this. So I've got my midpoints basically on the nut and midpoint at the edge of the fretboard. I've got my guiding lines, which is where the edges of the fretboard would be if the fretboard continues all the way. So I've got enough pointers to help me figure out where this bridge needs to go. So got my ruler, and I need 650 millimeters. So it's going to be roughly around here. I'm only doing it rough to start with because I want to put some masking tape on. Back to this. I'm going to get this as a straight edge. Oh, where's my pencil? Okay, well, the bridge is going to be somewhere here then. Now what I want to do is find the midpoint of this line. So this is 59 millimeters, 29 and a half. So that midpoint I've just worked out. I've drawn a straight perpendicular line to it. So I've just put on a little piece of masking tape on the bridge so that I can work out the midpoint and draw it on that so it matches up with this. And I'll do a quick one at the back too. I'm going to line that against what I've got here. Now this here should be the point of intonation. So I've taped the bridge down in position, just a rough thing. And I've got some thread, and I'm going to see basically whether it's all in line. Here goes nothing. Well, this is starting to take shape. You can see I've covered all of this with masking tape just so I can make some plans. I've got 2 humbuckers. These are actually 2 bridge position humbuckers, so I'm not going to be using these exact ones. Probably this one, not too sure. These are both iron gear pickups, by the way. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is find out exactly where I want to keep these. Now, one issue I have, and if anyone has something that can help me with this, please let me know in the comments below. But basically, these horizontal lines you see are the extension of the edge of the fretboard. So the strings are going to be within those, they're not going to go as far out as those 2 lines. The problem is, on the neck position, the bobbins of the humbucker are pretty much exactly on that line, which means the outer 2, so the low and high E, are going to be not exactly in line, and which means the rest won't be either, but it will be most of a problem up here. I don't know what I can do against that, because this is the standard size of a humbucker, I thought. So if anyone knows, please let me know. So I have to see what happens with that, but either way, this is the size of a humbucker, so I'm going to drill out or route out the holes to fit these basically. I just want to find out exactly where I'm going to place them, and then time to start routing. So I'll give you a close-up of what I've done so far. I've drawn basically where I want the pickups to go. I've decided that I'm going to try and do it with top-mounted pickups rather than using pickup rings, but using a pickup ring was perfect for basically tracing out where I needed it to go, where I need the pickups to go. I then just put the pickup on top and basically traced out the bits for this here, for this little bit where the screw goes, and that's giving me my shape. Now, to get this done as accurately as I could, I used the midpoint line as a gauge. I also used the fretboard extension lines here and on this side too, just for a bit of a guide as to how symmetrical it's all looking. And I'm pretty happy with how it is now. So all I've got to do is get the router and carefully go alongside it. I did try and make a template. I'll show you how successful that was. I mean, might look okay on first inspection, but it's really not straight edges, and I did this really quickly. I really rushed it. I think what I'm going to do is just freehand it. Here's the first one done. Looks a bit messy because of the masking tape, but it's actually pretty smooth, and there's enough space for the pickup to go in. It's 2 centimeter depth. So I'm going to do the exact same with this one now. So here's the latest update. The pickup cavities have been routed out. I'm really happy with how they've turned out. The pickup I'm planning to use fits in both of them, which is exactly what these are meant to do. And you've just seen me drill a hole from the neck pocket over here so that I can make a tunnel between the two pickup cavities for the wire to go through. So there's the entry, and it will come out here. And eventually, when I've done an electronics cavity up the back, I will then drill another tunnel basically here in the corner that goes into the electronics cavity. So I'm back on with a template because I've drawn out roughly where I want the electronics socket to go, this being the volume knob and tone and the three-way selector switch. And hopefully that'll give me enough flexibility so that I can get the volume knob roughly here, which hopefully will be around there somewhere, close enough to the bridge pickup and the bridge, where my strumming hand will be, so I can easily change the volume and flick the selector switch. The tone knob is kind of back here. I never really use a tone knob, but I must say I find it weird when the guitar doesn't have one, so or doesn't have something. So I'm gonna wire in a tone knob, and if I never use it and I think of something else I can do, at least I have another hole here, which I could put one of those, I don't know, I could use a kill switch or one of those blower switch mods, which I've done a video on. So it'll give me more flexibility if I have another hole in the top of the guitar here, and I'll just use it as a tone knob to start with. So I've routed out my template, and you can see here, this is where I'm going to be routing to a depth of about 3.5 centimeters. I need to measure that specifically. So first I'm going to route out this bit here, and then I'm going to cut away on my template this outer ring, because these bits here, which you can see, this kind of outline, is going to be where the cover is going to sit on top of. So I'm going to eventually route that down to a depth of, I don't know, 3-4 millimeters or so, just so a thin cover can sit flush with the rest of the body. Well, I've gone around with a router and I've got into a depth of just over 3 centimeters. I might give it go a little bit deeper. I don't want to go too deep the whole way. But I might make a few little deeper bits where the actual components are going to go. But it's a nice smooth cut. I'm really happy with that. Running my finger alongside it, it's nice and smooth. So somewhere here is going to be the input jack. So I'm going to need to make a tunnel eventually going there, basically, to connect that. And when I get it to a depth I'm really happy with, then I'm going to route out just a few millimeters here, just to give an outline so I can put some kind of cover on so it can sit flush. I didn't feel much of this because it's not much new. What I did now was I just cut out the outer ring that goes around the electronics cavity, which I drew on my template, so you can see that in the video earlier. And then I just used the router. Now I did this just by eyeballing it and getting it as close to the template edge as possible. I've got it at a very shallow depth, just a few mil, and that should be enough just for like a wooden cover, which I'm going to make myself as well. So I've got a piece of wood which is also from the same pile that I used as the top of the guitar. This piece came already cut like this, so it's not really usable for anything similar. So I'm going to use it just to get a nice piece of wood. I found this little bit here with some nice figuring, and I'm going to, just with a pencil, trace a line going around, and then cut that shape out, sand it down, and then I think I'm going to use my router to flatten it out to get it to the right depth. So I've cut this and sanded it down to shape. It's not a perfect fit around in the guitar, but it covers the hole well enough, and until I get better at this skill, this will have to do. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my router and just cut it to a depth, basically up until that piece of tape. So a lot needs to come off. I really hope that this whole thing doesn't just shatter, but this is how you learn, I guess. It's working. I'm as surprised as you are. That's cut down nice, and I'll get it flat afterwards. Well, as you can see, I messed up the first one. It was going so well. I literally just rushed the end. I needed to stop and get a few extra pieces for the router to be able to rest on, and I just kind of chanced it. I hate wasting nice bits of wood. This would have turned out perfect had it worked, so that's a real shame, but I've practiced. I now know I've got the right depth because it fits in the guitar well. I literally just need to try again and be more careful next time. I took a different approach this time. I tried this time to first route it down. I don't mind that it's not smooth. I'm going to go over that afterwards. It's a bit thick, so I'm going to maybe go over that with a belt sander. But I was able to get a flat enough surface that I can now cut out and finish up afterwards. Well, I guess that'll have to do. It's pretty flush, which is good, but as you can see, it's not the best fit. That's okay. I mean, I don't really mind with this kind of stuff, to be perfectly honest. I think it looks better when it's like this, as opposed to like that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this is a bit better. I don't know. I could say that this was completely planned to not fit perfectly, because now it gives me a great thing when I can just stick my finger in every time I want to take it off. But I think everyone will know that's not the case. So I was thinking anyway of painting this inside black with the conductive paint. So this here, this little gap, is going to be black anyway, so it's not going to be hopefully as obvious. Well, that part's done. I'm going to need to drill 3 screw holes to go in there, there, and here, so that I can screw it in, and then this bit is done. It's time to drill out the hole for the input jack, or the input socket. I've got this thing. This is just a cheap Harley Benton input jack plate, I suppose it's called. So I kind of want it to be around here, because I don't want it to be too far round, because then it will get in the way, or it might hit the floor when I stand the guitar up. But I don't want it to be too close this way, because then it will hit my leg, and it will also be a bit too close to the electronic socket. So, somewhere about here is exactly where it needs to be. I've got a hole that's deep enough, which is just over 3 centimeters deep. That would be deep enough for the input jack, I think. Yeah, coming in at this angle, I'd have to go in super deep to even have a chance of hitting the corner of this. I'm so far back here. So I think what I'm going to do is actually just drill a hole this way, and that should meet this tunnel here. So what I've done here is just put some masking tape in the 3 bits where I've allowed more space for the cover to go to screw into. I've drawn some guidelines basically to show where, well, to centralize where I want to drill the holes, and then I'm just going to do it by eyeballing it to see how far in to go. Okay, here we are. Pretty much right on the line there. Just to the left of it here. And there, yeah, on the line as well. Happy with that. That's how this is going to go on. Great. Now, electronics wise, there's 2 more holes to drill. That's a tunnel from this pickup cavity to the electronics cavity, and a ground as well, a ground to bridge. So it's another small tunnel from here to the thing. So to find out exactly where it is, I'm going to lay this template on. Oops, sorry about the camera angle. I'm going to lay this template on. I'm going to use some masking tape to mark out roughly where the electronic socket is, just so I have a bit of a guide which direction, or not which direction, but which angle I need to drill these in. So the edge of my electronics cavity is here. What's nice is that it's really close to this one, and it should be close enough for this one. So this one's done. That's drilled there and comes out, oops, on the other end over there, which is perfect. I did initially want a hole from under the bridge, which will be about here, and I've drawn a line to signify the end of the bridge. From under there, going into the electronic sockets. But that's quite a long distance. I haven't got the longest drill bits. And okay, this might be long enough in theory, but to get at an angle enough to get it to connect from around about here, well into here, I don't know if I can do that. And I don't know if I have the skills to do it as shallow an angle as possible without ripping the top. So I think what I'm going to do, because it might be a bit easier, is rather than go this way into the electronic socket, I'm going to drill a hole into the pickup socket, and the cable can literally just go under there and through this hole which I've already drilled out. So just to show you, that worked out well. If I take this out, there's a nice clean drilled angled hole there, which is wide enough for a cable to go through, and then it can just simply coil around into there. There we go. So that doesn't take up much space at all, and then it comes out the back. So I've actually got a pretty cool story about the next part of this guitar build. So the next thing I need to do, or the next thing I want to do rather, is fill in these tear out bits. So you can see there's a large bit here where the router just tore out this massive chunk, and there's another smaller one but still visible down here. I spoke about this in my last video as well. Now my original plan was to use some wood filler and fill it up, then sand it down flush with the rest of the body. I was going to paint over it, so I didn't really care that I was going to be using this stuff. It's not going to look particularly bad. Here comes the cool bit of the story. So a few weeks back, maybe 1 or 2, I can't remember, That Pedal Show, the YouTube channel, released a video where they were going through all of their guitars. And there was a particular guitar which caught my eye, and it was built by someone called Karl Longbottom. So I commented under that video just saying that Karl Longbottom Telecaster guitar is awesome, or something along those lines, and Karl Longbottom himself actually responded to that comment. So I asked him if he would kindly watch my first video on putting this guitar together and give me some tips, because I really like his work. And he very kindly did that. So if you're watching this, I doubt it, but if you are watching this, Karl Longbottom, thank you very much. I really appreciate your tips. And he gave the great idea of, rather than using this wood filler, which looks horrible, of basically filling it using wood. And so what I could do is, with a router and a straight edge, straighten up this line here, and then get a straight piece of wood to glue in. And then when that extra bit of wood is securely connected, I can just route it down flush again. If that ends up actually looking pretty good, then I'm going to keep the natural finish on the back, because there is a beautiful grain here. I do really like how it looks. If, however, it does a good job of filling in the hole but doesn't look particularly great, then I'm just going to go back to my original plan of painting the guitar body, and I'll be happy knowing I used as much wood as possible and as little wood filler as possible. Hopefully it's going to be a nice, smooth bit of wood this time. Let's see if that actually happens. So I made a lot of mess, but it worked out really well. So this was my straight edge, which I ran the router across, and this is my spare bit of wood. It came from the same bit of wood that the body's cut out of. It's got a nice straight edge, and what's pretty cool, so here's the flat bit which I've done on the guitar now, and this fits pretty flush, also height wise. So I'm really happy with that. That was a great tip. Thank you so much, Karl Longbottom. First I'm going to cut the length I need for this one, and then whatever's left I will route down to the right depth for here. So I've got my two pieces. This is the small one, which is going to go roughly there. It's a little bit higher, but I'm going to finish that off when I've glued it on. I couldn't quite get it to the right depth, but that's no problem at all, because I could just either chisel that or go over it with a router. There's many ways I can fix that, that's not a problem. And this one here fits perfectly. So I'm going to glue these on, clamp them down, and leave this for 24 hours and take it from there. So I'm going to leave this for 24 hours. It's going to test my patience because it's coming so close now. And tomorrow I should be able to route these off. Well, I'm really happy with the results. So it was glued on. Oops, that's my template there. And now, okay, it's very visible when you go and zoom like this, but you can't really feel it anymore. It feels like one smooth transition. And it's a little bit visible. I still need to sand a little bit of the glue away, but I'm really happy with that. That means I can keep the wooden background because I think it looks nice enough. And on this side, sorry, I'm trying to do this one-handed, a bit messier with the glue. There's actually a big gap I needed to fill, so I did the super glue and sanding dust trick. And I'm going to keep sanding at that. And this one here looks a little bit messier over there. I really had to fill in quite a lot. I'm going to let that completely dry and then go over it once more with a belt sander, I think, to smoothen it all out. So I have a guitar that has its shape again. That's super awesome. Thank you very much, Karl Longbottom, for the tip. And time to move on with the guitar. So using my template, I was able to mark out exactly where the electronics cavity is. I think, like the other guitar, I'm going to be using these style knobs. I also like the color against the wood. So I just drew an outline roughly there where I want it to be. And for the tone knob over here, I've got an old Strat style pickguard, and I just used this as a template for drawing and marking the exact distances for the screws and the slot for the blade. Well, that was easy. Both drilled out in a really nice position, exactly where I wanted them to be. A tiny little bit of tear out, but nothing a bit of sandpaper won't fix. And to be honest, I just stuck the potentiometer through, and I need to route this out a little bit deeper. I think I'm only going to route out just a circle here and a circle there, just a few mil, just so I can poke it out a little bit more. So I've taken this outside now. I've continued with the rasp, and this is just one I got from Amazon for about 14 euros or so. And what I've been doing is just rounding out some kind of contouring. Now, the reason I've gone at it quite hard is because I started off just continuing this where the top by itself started going down. So I've tried to continue it around. And what I first did was I just kind of rounded off over here. But then it lost its shape and it looked a little bit, I don't know, it just didn't look as good. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to give it its shape back, basically, by having a more angled contouring that gives it this kind of definition here in the middle and also on the sides. And what's cool is that it's also allowed these extra little detailing and darker bits to shine through, and it looks great. I'm really happy with it. Just a quick demonstration of my setup for the routing of the selector switch blade hole. I don't know what that's called, but that's slot. So I've got my straight edge that's roughly in the same direction or angle, and I've got a really thin router bit here. Ooh, can you see that? Yeah, really thin router bit. But I'm just going to go along the edge of this and route that out. Well, here's the result, and as you can see, it's got a nice, fairly even cut the whole way through. I do need to get at it with a bit of sandpaper just to smoothen out these little bits that are sticking out. That should be absolutely fine. I just need to draw now the two holes for the screws, and that's it. I might actually need to route out underneath in the electronic socket, actually, just to make it a bit narrower just in this area here, but we'll see. So excuse the water sound in the background, I'm outdoors at the moment. I've sanded this down to 400 grit sandpaper, And I'm going to apply some of this orange oil, which, if my German is good enough, I understand that it acts as a bit of a cleaner for the wood somehow. So I'm just going to give this a bit of an oil. It's nothing that will give this guitar a finish. I've got some crimson finishing oil on the way for that. This is just a bit of a prep and a bit of a, just to kind of condition the wood a little bit. Whew, it's nice. Well, this has come to life. Like I said, this isn't the finish. This is just a bit of oil, just to kind of treat the wood a little bit, but I'm close to the finishing stage. Let's rub this one in. Well, this looks and smells actually amazing. So, oh, this looks amazing. This is also a bit of a treat for me. It's not necessary at this stage. Like I said, I'm not finishing this anytime soon. But oh, I love this open pore and everything. It just looks fantastic. So, I really need to work it in there. So here we are, what a difference. So I've worked it in, I've worked that oil in, here it is, that orange oil. Oh, it's darkened the wood up nicely. All of those tiger stripe things that goes across it. I mean, just look at that. It's just made it all a lot more 3D and just a lot more texture. Now this is just one coat of this, and like I said, this doesn't give any protection. This isn't anything to seal the wood or anything like that. It's just something which, as far as I understand at the back, it says that it just cleans the wood and maybe acts as a bit of a conditioner. I'm not too sure about that though. I just wanted to kind of give myself a bit of a treat doing this. I knew it was going to look nice. Now to actually finish this guitar, I've ordered some Crimson Guitars finishing oil. So that's on its way, and whenever that comes, I'm ready to oil finish this guitar. Okay, well I think that just about wraps up today's episode. This is as far as I've come, and I have a guitar body, which just needs to be finished now. All of the bits to route out have been routed out in the right places. It took ages, because this episode comprised of loads and loads of little jobs, whereas the previous episode had about 3 or 4 big ones. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I particularly like the contouring. That was something which I wasn't really expecting to do on this guitar, but it turned out really nice. So what went well in today's episode? To be honest, most of it. I corrected, I'm particularly happy about correcting the mistakes here by adding that bit of wood and then routing it back down instead of using the wood filler. So again, thank you Karl Longbottom for that tip. I know I've said that about 3 or 4 times already. Really happy with the routing and the drilling of the holes for the electronic socket and the holes for the potentiometers to go through. It's a nice neat job. I'm really happy with that, to be honest. And the big surprise was this oil finish. Now I wasn't, sorry, not finish, but the oil which I finished this episode with. Now I really wasn't expecting to apply any oil to this until actually finishing, but it got to this stage. I had sanded it down to 400, it was nice and smooth, and I just thought, well, why don't I just, while I'm waiting for that crimson finishing oil to come, why don't I just use some of this cleaning orange oil, whatever it is, and it just gave it this beautiful, beautiful finish. I'll try and get some close-ups if it's not really coming out on the video. I did a bit on the sides. I'm going to do the back as well, but I need to sand it down and clean it up a little bit, and same with the sides, to be honest. But it turned that pale back colour on the sides is now like an amber, and I just really like it. So this is looking awesome. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything you think I could have done differently or better, or that you would have done in another way. So in the next episode, what I need to do is finish this guitar body, and what I mean by that is apply the finishing oil, get it basically ready to have a neck attached, and then all the hardware, so it's good to go basically. I'm really excited about that. Applying the oil is where this guitar comes to life, and I'm really happy so far, so I'm really excited to see where this takes me. Now as for the neck, like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm going to start working with the neck that came in the Harley Benton kit which I've got, which I showed you earlier in the episode, and then I'm going to start building my own neck to replace it with. That's going to be a long process, so I'm going to start just by finishing the body and getting it ready with that guitar neck. That might be 1 or 2 episodes, I'm not too sure yet. If you have any tips or advice or anything that you think I should have done differently or should do differently next time, please do put them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your opinions. I'm learning this whole way through and I'm having a great time doing it, so I'd love to hear what you have to say. That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you had a great time watching this, maybe found it helpful. At the very least, I just hope you enjoyed it. That's all from me today. Till next time.